What is up, guys and gals? Today we're going to show you how to break down, service, and reassemble this Shakespeare Leader 1909. Very nice. Much, much better. Could take this fishing again. Nice. Of course, we're going to look for a schematic for it, but for this one, it's proving difficult. Great thing is that this reel is not that difficult to take apart and service. So let's just get started. First, we're going to remove this right side by undoing those two screws right there. That pulls straight up. I'm going to leave this alone for a second. We'll get back to it. So to get that main gear out of there, we're going to undo that nut. It's counterclockwise to remove it. And it just comes up. Now we can push that main gear out. Like so. You can undo that cap there. That's just a tension knob for it. These reels come with bushings inside them. And easily enough, that is it for the right side. The first thing we're going to do over here is remove that gear. But before I do that, I want to move that level wind over to a clear side so I can access underneath there. So let's just go ahead and turn that to right about there and pull that off. Now we can pull the spool out and lift that little plate that we see there up, and now we can undo this screw that's under there to get the pawl out so we can remove the worm. Up that comes, and now we can pull this worm out just like that. Then we'll take this carrier out, and we are almost done. Have that on the back side, bushing on this side and on the right side as well. That is it. Now in general, we'll use Corrosion X to break these things down, but this one is so cruddy. I'm going to use an ultrasonic cleaner with some Dawn in it. Hopefully that works it out. If it does not, I'm going to use something a little stronger, but we'll start with the Dawn first. All right, so if you don't have an ultrasonic cleaner and you ever wondered how things look when they come out of there, I'll show you. For this one, I use my 3-liter ultrasonic cleaner, and I ran it with Dawn dish liquid and water temperature of about 42 degrees Celsius. So what you'll see is that it doesn't completely get it clean, but what it does do is makes it a lot easier to clean it. So let me take out this body piece first so you can compare it. I'll let this drip clean for a second and then I'll show it to you. I'll show you what it looks like, and I can put up a side-by-side view of how it looked before. And of course, it's not been cleaned yet. It's been through the ultrasonic cleaner, but that looks a lot better to me than it did before. So some pieces will undoubtedly get cleaner, but what I do at this point is just use something like a toothbrush, and I will even use a wire brush as well to help clean these things up. But if it doesn't need it, I won't use it. So basically, I don't know if I said this, but what I was saying earlier is that what it does do is it helps break that grease down or that grime down, so it's much easier to clean. And that's really what we want to get after anyhow. So we'll see, that looks really nice now. Now if you see this piece right here, there's a little bit of black stuff right there. It's not coming off with this toothbrush, so I'm going to use this metal brush and see if that helps. And there we go, it does help. So that's basically what I'll be doing with these things. Let me show you this frame. This way you can look at it, just drying off the suds so you can see it clearer. And that's how it looks after the ultrasonic cleaner. And I'll put a side-by-side over here somewhere so you can see that when it was before, how it was before when I put it in. But let's go ahead and wipe it down and see if it comes off. Not coming off still. But if you look under here, that's a lot cleaner than it was before. It was just a lot of black soot and so on. So for these, So for this area, what I'll take is a little Q-tip like that, and you can see all that stuff coming off. So there will be some elbow grease still needed in these things, but it's a lot easier to get this cleaned up. All right, I'll see you guys after this is cleaned up. All right, that came out pretty nice. Not perfect, but quite nice, if I may say so myself. Of course, you could use something like a Dremel with a brush tip to it and get a little better job done inside there. I don't think you need it, but if you wanted to do so, you certainly could. One thing to note here is that if you're not cleaning the parts after you've cleaned them in the ultrasonic cleaner, leave them in there until you're ready to clean them, so they keep soaking in that Dawn solution. All right, so a couple things I'm going to use here will be Speedex. That's the oil I'm going to be using, and I'll also be using pen reel grease, and that's pretty much it. First, I'll start with the frame. I'm going to add a little bit of oil right inside that channel right there. Same for inside here. And I'll screw that in. Now I'm going to just kind of get it started. I'm not going to go all the way in, but just somewhere around there just to get it started. For the clicker, I'm going to also use oil down there. I'm not going to use any grease. Just oil around there. Then we'll kind of work that in. Feels much better already. Awesome. Now for the spool, I'm going to take some grease, add it to right there on the teeth, and a little bit on that post. And for this side, we're only going to add some to the post. That might be a bit much. Let's get some of that off of there. But definitely none to those teeth on there. That's the clicker. I don't really add into the clicker ratchet that we see there. Normally once I'm done with the spool, I'll stick that into the frame, but on this one I'm not going to do it because I still need to work on this level wind system. Now on this worm, we'll see that there's a side that has a cut into the shaft and one is completely rounded. The one that has a cut in the shaft will be going up through this section here to have that gear fit over it. First thing I'm going to do is take some oil, stick that in that channel right there. That's where this guide is going to ride. And before I forget, I'm going to add some oil, a couple of drops, maybe 4 or 5 drops on the worm so I don't forget that either. Same token, I'll add a couple drops here on the pawl. And we can also go ahead and add some inside that channel right there. And some inside that little channel right there. All right, now let's go ahead and open this up and stick our worm through just about right there. Now I'm going to take this, put it under that shield, but make sure I have it inside the guide. Hold it together so it doesn't move out of place. Then continue pushing the worm through. Now at this point we'll get to the other end, we'll stick it through it. Make sure it goes into that little cap at the end there. You'll feel it just kind of recess in place. Then we can turn it over like this and work on sticking this gear on. Before I do that, I'm going to add a little bit of grease. That's probably enough. You don't need to grease every single thing, it'll work itself in, but you want to grease at least half of the gear. After we've got this greased up, we're going to go ahead and take this, roll that over until it locks over that worm, like so. Take our gear, rotate that over the post until it falls in place. And now that's all set up. Now we can take our pawl and put that in. The pawl will be going in looking like that with those prongs straight up and down in that direction. So it'll be looking like this, sideways. Straight through. Now I'm going to get to here and I'm going to move that over a little bit, but I'm going to gently press on this as I rotate this gear. And the reason is because I want that to fall in place, which it just did. Now we'll go ahead and cover that up. You'll notice that on this plate right here, there's a larger hole. That larger hole will be going over the pawl itself. And for the smaller hole, that's where we'll put our screw in. So it'll be looking like that. And we'll take our screw. It's the shorter of the 3 screws that we have, and we'll screw that in place. These screws are difficult to get inside, so I'm going to take some grease, put on the tip of my screwdriver so I can hold that screw in place and then gently screw that in. Just snug it down, don't go too crazy on it, but now you can test it again to make sure everything's working fine, which we see that it is. Now at this point we can go ahead and put our spool inside. Before we do that, we want to make sure that our clicker's in the off position, which that one is. Just drop that in and set it over here. The last pieces we have are this. We're going to grease this and this, add some oil to right here, some oil inside right there. If you notice, I'm just kind of greasing all the surface area of this. I like to kind of have a little bit of protection on all of the metal parts. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this when I started the video, but this is a direct drive reel, meaning it has no brake for the anti-reverse. It just goes forward and backwards. Last piece of grease will be this shaft. Get some around those threads and all over this. Now the first thing we'll put on is this gear. We'll drop that down. It'll go over that squared bottom there. Same thing for this gear. So we have the main gear interacting with the pinion gear and the smaller gear interacting with that transfer gear. Now all we have left to do is just stick this through this hole right here. And before we go any further, we're going to go ahead and cover this up. Same thing for this one. I'm not going all the way down yet. I'm just going to leave that raised up slightly. Now before we put this handle on, we can add some grease to right there in that hole. And some oil to these knobs. Some there, some at the top. I'll work that in. But as you use the reel, you'll work that in also. Now before you put this on, you want to make sure that that squared off bottom of this stud is going flush against the gears, which this one is. And you'll note that from looking at the top of that stud where you have the shoulder exposed. Then we'll just screw that down. Now, I don't know if there should be a washer there or not, but there isn't one on this one. So we're going to snug this down pretty good. All right, so now you can take this, line it up, make sure that post goes through the hole. Then we're going to rotate this until it falls in place, which was right there for me. Now before I screw these two screws in, I'm going to add some oil right there and right there. And while I screw this in, if you wanted to check out a old school Zebco spin cast reel, check right here. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're interested in videos like this. And also hit that thumbs up button if you appreciated this content. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see y'all next time.